You are not lazy. You never were. That word has never described you. Not accurately. Not honestly. Lazy is what people call themselves when they cannot explain why they keep failing at the things they actually want to do. You want to read. But you scroll instead. You want to work. But your mind drifts after 4 minutes. You want to build something that matters. But you reach for your phone before the first sentence is written. You have told yourself it is weakness. You have told yourself it is a character flaw. You have decided, quietly, that something is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. What is wrong is the system that was built around you. What you are experiencing is not a moral failure. It is a neurological condition. And it has a name. Your dopamine system has been hijacked. Deliberately. Systematically. By people who get paid to keep you exactly where you are. The Stoics did not have smartphones. They did not have feeds or algorithms or notification badges. But they understood the human mind well enough to see this coming 2,000 years in advance. This video is about what they saw. And what you can do about it starting today. Let me explain what is actually happening inside your brain. Every time you pick up your phone and scroll, your brain releases a chemical called dopamine. Most people think dopamine is a pleasure chemical. That is not accurate. Dopamine is an anticipation chemical. It fires in response to the possibility of reward. Not the reward itself. The possibility. This is why you keep scrolling even when nothing interesting is happening. Your brain is not looking for content. It is chasing the next hit of anticipation. The next potential reward that might be one more scroll away. The machine in your hand was engineered around this exact mechanism. The engineers who built these platforms studied behavioral psychology for years before they wrote a single line of code. They studied slot machines. They studied gambling addiction. They understood one critical insight. Unpredictable rewards are more addictive than consistent ones. A slot machine that paid out every single pull would be boring. Nobody would become addicted to certainty. The addiction comes from not knowing. From the possibility that this pull might be the one. So they made the feed unpredictable. They made the reward random. You never know if the next post will be boring or the most fascinating thing you have seen all week. That uncertainty is not an accident. It is the entire architecture. Every scroll is a pull of the lever. And here is the consequence that nobody in the technology industry wants to say out loud. Over time, your baseline dopamine threshold rises. The small rewards stop registering. Your brain starts requiring more stimulation just to feel normal. More novelty. More speed. More input. This is the same neurological mechanism that drives every addiction in human history. The substance changes. The brain chemistry does not. You are not failing at willpower. You are working against a system that was designed by teams of neuroscientists, psychologists, and engineers who were paid billions of dollars to make it as difficult to resist as possible. But here is where it becomes something more serious than lost time. The cost is not just productivity. The cost is not just the hours you cannot account for at the end of the day. The cost is your capacity for depth. When your brain is constantly fed shallow, fast, disposable stimulation, it begins to lose the ability to sit with difficult things. Not immediately. Gradually. Hard books start to feel impossible after 20 pages. Long conversations start to feel exhausting. Silence starts to feel like a threat instead of a resource. You feel this. Most people watching this video know exactly what I am describing. Not as an idea. As a lived experience. The question is not whether this is happening to you. At some level, it is happening to everyone living inside this system. The question is whether you are going to do anything about it. Before we get to that, I want to take you somewhere. 2,000 years back. To men who understood distraction better than any researcher alive today. His name was Lucius Annaeus Seneca. He was a philosopher, a playwright, and for a period of his life, one of the most powerful men in Rome. He served as the personal advisor to Emperor Nero. He understood power, corruption, noise, and the cost of losing yourself to the demands of the external world. And he wrote something that should stop every person reading their phone at 3 in the morning cold. He wrote, "Nowhere can a man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. Not in vacation. Not in entertainment. Not in the company of others. Not in achievement or recognition. In his own soul." Seneca was consumed by what he called the squandering of time. He believed, without compromise, that most people do not actually live their lives. They perform them. They fill them. They exhaust them chasing stimulation and calling it experience. He wrote to a friend, "It is not that I have little time. It is that I waste a great deal of it." He wrote that in the 1st century. The problem is not new. The machine that weaponized it is. Now here is the Stoic principle at the center of everything in this video. It is called Prosoche. In ancient Greek, Prosoche means attention to the self. Attention to one's own soul. More specifically, it means the practice of watching your own mind from the inside. The Stoics believed that the most dangerous enemy a human being would ever face was not external. Not a rival. Not poverty. Not illness. Not political collapse. The most dangerous enemy was inner distraction. They defined inner distraction as the habit of living outside yourself. Constantly reacting to the noise of the world. Never pausing long enough to observe what is actually happening inside your own mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this every single day in his meditations. He was emperor of Rome. He governed an empire of 70 million people. He fought wars on multiple fronts simultaneously. He managed plague, betrayal, the deaths of children, and the constant pressure of a position that consumed every waking moment. He had more justification than any person alive to be consumed entirely by the external world. And yet he wrote to himself, privately, with no intention of publishing a single word, about the daily discipline of returning inward. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He did not write that as motivation. He did not post it as a reminder on his wall. He wrote it to himself because he needed to hear it again. Because even Marcus Aurelius struggled with the pull of distraction. Even the man considered the closest human beings have come to a philosopher king had to consciously fight the gravitational pull of noise. This is important. Remember it. The Stoics did not claim to be immune to distraction. They claimed to have a system for resisting it. The third great Stoic was a man named Epictetus. And his life was the most extreme proof that this philosophy actually works. Epictetus was born a slave. He had no legal freedom. No ownership over his own body. His master once broke his leg deliberately to test whether he would cry out. He did not. He became the most influential Stoic teacher in Rome. Emperors came to study under him. And his central argument was this. No external force can take your freedom if you understand one thing. Your attention is yours. Always. He called this the dichotomy of control. There are things within your power. And things outside it. Your body, your reputation, your social status, your career outcomes, what other people think of you, how many followers you have, whether your content performs. All of that falls into the category of things outside your control. Your attention. Your judgment. Your values. Your response to what happens to you. These are always within your control. Without exception. The algorithm has no power over you that you do not give it. That sentence will sound simple. It is not simple to apply. But it is the foundation of everything that follows in this video. Here is the part most people miss about Prosoche. It is not passive. It is not just awareness. Awareness alone does not change anything. Prosoche is active resistance. The Stoics trained their minds the way serious athletes train their bodies. With deliberate practice. With progressive difficulty. With intentional exposure to discomfort. Seneca would periodically choose to eat plain food. Wear rough clothing. Sleep on a hard surface. Go without things he could easily afford. Not because he was punishing himself. Not because he believed suffering was noble. Because he wanted to know that his comfort did not own him. He wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself, is this the condition that I feared?" This was the Stoic answer to addiction before addiction had a clinical name. Not avoidance. Not restriction imposed from outside. Voluntary, deliberate proof that you are in control of your own appetites. This matters because the dopamine trap is not broken by eliminating the source. People delete apps and reinstall them within 48 hours. The trap is broken by rebuilding your relationship with discomfort. By proving to your own nervous system that you can tolerate the absence of stimulation and not fall apart. That is the Stoic method. And it is the only method that actually works at the neurological level. Here is what Stoic resistance looks like in direct response to dopamine addiction. There are 3 practices. They are drawn directly from Stoic philosophy. They are not a 30-day challenge. They are not a productivity system. They are a daily training protocol for your attention. The first practice is called the morning citadel. Marcus Aurelius described the mind as a citadel. A fortress. Impenetrable from the outside if properly defended from within. The practice is this. Before you pick up your phone in the morning. Before you check messages, notifications, news, or feeds. You sit with your own thoughts for 5 minutes. Not meditation with an app. Not guided breathing. Not a journaling prompt. Just silence. With no input from anywhere. What your mind reaches for in those 5 minutes is information. It will reach for your phone. It will reach for stimulation. It will reach for anything to fill the silence because your baseline has been trained to treat stillness as discomfort. Let it reach. And do not give it what it wants. This is the first act of reclaiming your attention. Not dramatic. Not visible to anyone. But neurologically significant. Every morning you sit in silence before the machine gets you, you are widening the gap between stimulus and response. That gap is where your agency lives. The Stoics called this gap reason. And they believed it was the defining characteristic of a human being. You are not training yourself to become a monk. You are training yourself to have 5 minutes of sovereignty over your own mind every single morning. Start there. The second practice is called the evening inventory. Seneca wrote letters every evening. He used them to examine his own behavior throughout the day. Not to celebrate accomplishments. Not to list tasks for tomorrow. To observe his own patterns without judgment. He asked himself 3 questions at the end of each day. What did I do wrong today? What did I do well? What could I have done differently? You do not need to write letters. But you need a version of this practice. At the end of the day, before sleep, ask yourself one question. Where did my attention go today? And did I choose that? Or did something else choose it for me? Most people who answer this question honestly for the first time are unsettled by the answer. The majority of their attention was not chosen. It was pulled. By notifications they did not decide to check. By feeds they opened out of reflex. By the automatic reach for stimulation at every moment of boredom or discomfort or waiting. Naming this is not self-punishment. Self-punishment is useless to the Stoics. Naming it is self-awareness. And self-awareness, for Epictetus, was the first act of freedom. You cannot change a pattern you have never examined. The evening inventory is the examination. The third practice is called voluntary discomfort. Once per week, you choose to do something that your dopamine-conditioned brain will actively resist. Read a difficult book for 1 hour without checking your phone. Write by hand. Sit outside with no earphones and no screen. Cook a full meal with nothing playing in the background. Have a conversation with no device present. The specific activity is not the point. The resistance is the point. Every time you choose discomfort voluntarily, every time you face the pull of stimulation and deliberately do not give in, you are sending a message to your own nervous system. You are not in charge of me. I am in charge of you. This is exactly what Seneca was doing when he ate plain food and wore rough clothes despite being wealthy enough to eat and dress however he wished. He was not performing poverty. He was performing agency. He was proving to himself, repeatedly, that his appetites did not determine his choices. That proof, accumulated over time, is what the Stoics called strength of character. Now here is the critical thing that most conversations about discipline miss entirely. The Stoics were not idealists. They did not believe willpower alone was a sustainable strategy. Marcus Aurelius did not rely on motivation. He relied on systems, on structure, on designing his environment and his daily routine in a way that made the right choices the default. He wrote the same lessons to himself in his meditations again and again. Not because he forgot them the first time. Because he understood that the mind drifts. That the pull toward distraction is constant and persistent. The system has to be built to account for the days when your resolve is low. For the Tuesday at 11 at night when you're tired and the phone is right there. That means putting the phone in a different room while you work. That means not bringing it into the bedroom. That means building hours in your day where distraction is structurally impossible. Not just intentionally avoided. You are not fighting a bad habit in isolation. You are fighting an infrastructure worth hundreds of billions of dollars that was designed to defeat your willpower. The Stoics built their own infrastructure in response to the distractions of their world. You have to build yours. Epictetus asked his students a question. He used it to separate the people who would actually change from the people who only intended to. He asked, "What are you becoming?" Not what do you want to become. Not what did you used to be. Not what do you plan to start doing on Monday. What are you becoming? Right now. With the choices you are actually making today. Not the choices you intend to make. The ones you are making. If you pick up your phone more than 100 times per day without a single conscious decision to do so. If you reach for stimulation at every moment of waiting, boredom, or mild discomfort. If you have not read a difficult book in months. If silence has started to feel like a threat. Then regardless of your intentions. Regardless of what you tell yourself before you sleep. You are becoming someone who cannot think deeply. Someone who cannot hold attention on a single thing long enough to see it through. Someone who is slowly losing the capacity to do the hard, uncomfortable, meaningful things that actually matter. That is not a judgment. That is what the research shows when human beings live inside a system designed to fragment attention without any active resistance. The Stoics had a name for this condition. They called it slavery. And they meant it literally. Not as a metaphor. Not as an exaggeration. Epictetus was an actual slave. He had no legal claim to his own body. His freedom was not theoretical. It was completely absent. And yet he argued, without hesitation, that he was more free than the men who owned him. Because his attention was his own. His judgment was his own. His response to everything that happened to him was chosen, not reflexive. His mind was a citadel that no one could enter without his permission. You have something Epictetus never had. You have legal freedom. Physical freedom. You have access to more knowledge, more opportunity, and more resources than any human being in the history of civilization. And the current research shows that the average person checks their phone every 17 minutes. Every 17 minutes. Without deciding to. Without a reason. Just the reflexive reach toward the machine. What would Seneca say about that? What would Epictetus say to the generation that inherited everything and still cannot read for 20 minutes without reaching for a distraction? I am not asking that to humiliate you. I am asking it because the question matters. Because answering it honestly is the beginning of something. The Stoics did not build comfortable philosophy. They built useful philosophy. Philosophy that worked under maximum pressure. Under grief and war and the collapse of everything familiar. Their answer to distraction was not retreat. It was not escaping the noise by going somewhere quieter. It was presence. Radical, deliberate, daily presence. That is what is on the other side of this. Not a perfect mind. Not the elimination of every distraction forever. A mind that is yours again. The Stoics ask one question. What are you becoming? Are you asking it? The Stoics spent their entire lives practicing one discipline. Choosing what they gave their attention to. Not perfectly. Not without struggle. But deliberately. Every single day. That practice is available to you right now. No equipment. No program. No subscription. Just the decision to begin. If this challenged you, subscribe. This channel exists for people who are done drifting.